They told him there was nothing available. Not a single room. Not even a broom closet. They said it with straight faces. Firm voices. No room for discussion. But 10 minutes later, a stranger walked in and walked out with a room key in his hand. What the staff did not know was that the man they turned away was not just another traveler. He was someone with influence. Someone with reach. Someone who built entire companies from the ground up while people doubted him at every step. His name was Marcus Hale, and this night would change the course of everyone's future at that hotel. Hours earlier, Marcus had been driving down the coast toward Harborcrest Beach, a quiet but wealthy area of South Florida, known for its glittering skyline and expensive marinas. His silver sedan rolled into the driveway of the Bluecrest Grand Hotel, a place famous for its polished floors and perfectly rehearsed politeness. Rain was pouring down in steady sheets, tapping against Marcus's windshield like impatient fingers. His flight had been delayed twice. His eyes were tired. His head was heavy. All he wanted was a room and a few hours of sleep before his meeting in the morning. He stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. His navy suit was wrinkled from travel, but still sharp. Marcus was tall, calm, and carried himself with a confidence that came from years of fighting uphill battles and winning them one by one. He pushed open the heavy glass doors and took in the scent of fresh mint, polished wood, and roasted coffee drifting from the hotel cafe. He approached the desk with an easy smile. "Good evening. I need a room for the night. My flight schedule went upside down, and I cannot make the drive back home tonight." Behind the counter stood a young man with a stiff posture and a name tag that read Derek. He barely lifted his eyes. "We're full." His tone was clipped and cold, not a flicker of sympathy. Marcus lifted an eyebrow. "Full? Completely?" Derek typed a few keys, slowly and dramatically. "Correct. No rooms open." Marcus glanced around. The lobby was nearly empty. A manager spoke softly to a bellhop in the corner. A single elevator chimed in the distance. He leaned in slightly. "Are you absolutely sure?" Derek finally met his eyes. The expression he gave was not one of regret. It was one of certainty, and something else Marcus did not miss. "Sir, we have nothing available for you." Before Marcus could reply, the doors opened behind him. A couple stepped in pulling rolling suitcases. They did not look like they had reservations. They looked like walk-ins, rushed and hopeful. Derek's whole face transformed. Suddenly, he was all smiles and warmth. "Welcome to the Bluecrest Grand. Let me check availability for you." Marcus watched, saying nothing. 10 seconds later, Derek printed a key card and handed it over. "Enjoy your stay." Marcus inhaled. The truth settled heavily in his chest. This was not about rooms. This was not about schedules. It was about something far uglier and far older than travel delays. Marcus straightened his shoulders. He would not give Derek the satisfaction of reacting. "Thank you for your time." He turned away, stepped back into the rain, and let the cold air hit his face. The hotel lights formed bright halos against the wet pavement behind him. He could have walked away and forgotten the whole thing. Many people would have done exactly that. But Marcus was not built that way. He stopped under the awning, took out his phone, and pretended to scroll. But his eyes stayed locked on the doors, watching every movement inside the lobby. Moments later, a young man in a worn hoodie walked in. His backpack looked heavy. His hair was messy from travel. He asked Derek a question Marcus didn't need to hear to understand. Seconds passed. Derek nodded and nodded again, and then slid a key card across the counter. No hesitation. No excuses. Just an easy welcome for someone else. Marcus's jaw tightened. His heartbeat stayed calm. He had been underestimated too many times to be surprised now. But that did not mean he would ignore it. He stepped into his car and shut the door. The leather seat was cool against his back, and the sound of the rain softened against the roof. He placed both hands on the steering wheel and sat in silence. He thought of all the people who had ever been turned away in the same quiet, steady way. People who did not have the resources to fight back. People who had no voice in places that pretended to be neutral, but treated them differently. Marcus had promised himself long ago that when he had power, he would use it. Not for revenge, for accountability. He turned on the engine and pulled out of the driveway. The hotel got smaller in his rearview mirror but the night was nowhere near finished. A plan was forming. Not rushed, not emotional, calculated. Marcus Hale had faced bias, rejection, and disrespect in his early years. He had endured what many never saw. He had built his success brick by brick because he refused to let anyone decide his worth. Tonight only reminded him of who he was and reminded the world of what he could do. He drove to a quiet diner around the corner, its sign glowing faintly in the stormy night. Inside, the smell of cinnamon and eggs greeted him. He sat in a booth and opened his laptop. This was no longer about a room. This was about setting a standard. What the Bluecrest Grand did not know was that Marcus had been evaluating the hotel chain for weeks. Rumors of financial troubles had already crossed his desk. The decision he was about to make would change everything, and the staff at that hotel would wake up to a very different world. Marcus opened the laptop, and the screen glowed across his tired face. He took a slow breath as the storm outside softened into a steady rhythm against the diner windows. A waitress placed a mug of fresh coffee on his table without a word, and he thanked her with a nod before focusing on the documents he had been reviewing earlier that week. He had not planned to buy the Bluecrest Grand. Not tonight. Not even this month. It was supposed to be another property on a long list of possibilities. A distant maybe. But the rejection at the front desk had shifted something in him. Not a burst of anger, but a steady resolve. A reminder that moments like this mattered. That small acts of prejudice were not small at all, especially to those who carried the weight of them daily. He clicked open his files. He scanned financial reports. He studied valuation documents. He reviewed notes from his last team meeting. The hotel was struggling. Its parent company was desperate for liquidity. It was the kind of opportunity that came once in a while and always went to the highest bidder. Marcus finished his coffee, reached for his phone, and called someone he trusted more than almost anyone in his network. Anna, I need everything ready for the acquisition of the Bluecrest Grand Hotel by sunrise. There was a pause on the other end. Anna Patel was his attorney, sharp-minded and fast-moving. She never questioned Marcus unless something seemed impossible. By sunrise, Marcus, that building is wrapped in legal layers. It will take. Anna, I know. But I also know you can get it done. This is important. Her hesitation faded. Send me the documents you have. I'll work through the night. Thank you. And Anna, no delays. Understood. He hung up and let the quiet of the diner settle around him. The storm outside was easing. A few late-night customers had come in and were murmuring over their meals. Marcus took another sip of coffee and kept working until the first shade of purple appeared in the sky. Every signature was sent. Every document was finalized. Every transfer was approved. By the time the sun rose over Harbor Crest Beach and the roads glistened with leftover rain, the ownership of the Bluecrest Grand Hotel had shifted. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. This wasn't about pride. It was about principle. He closed the laptop. He whispered to himself, not one more person. Not on my watch. Then he left the diner, got into his car, and drove back toward the hotel that had dismissed him only hours before. The morning light reflected off the building's glass facade. Workers stood near the entrance preparing for the day. Guests were starting to come down for breakfast. Marcus stepped inside the lobby with a presence that was calm but commanding. He walked toward the front desk, and the atmosphere began to shift. People could feel something different in the room, even if they didn't know what it was yet. Derek was at the counter again, wearing his polite smile. He looked up, ready to repeat the same line he used the night before. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" His voice stopped. His smile cracked. Recognition hit him like a wave. Marcus placed a black folder on the counter and opened it slowly. Dozens of pages sat inside. Paper signed, stamped, finalized. "I came to introduce myself. My name is Marcus Hale. As of 6 o'clock this morning, I am the new owner of the Bluecrest Grand Hotel." Derek's expression drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Around them, employees paused. Conversation stopped. A housekeeper froze with a card. A bellhop turned around. The entire lobby had gone silent. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Last night, I was told there were no available rooms. Twice. But I watched 2 other people walk in and get treated just fine. That told me everything I needed to know about how guests are chosen here. Derek swallowed hard. He tried to form a sentence, but Marcus lifted a hand gently. No excuses. Actions speak clearly. He turned to the gathering staff. I believe in running places where every person is treated fairly, where no one is made to feel lesser, where respect is not optional but required. The employees shifted. Some looked nervous, but others looked quietly relieved. Marcus returned his focus to Derek. Your behavior does not match the future of this hotel. Your employment ends today. The words were calm, steady, final. Derek's jaw clenched. He muttered something under his breath and backed away from the desk, anger and embarrassment mixing across his face. But no one stepped in to defend him. Some of the staff lowered their eyes. Others looked away entirely. Marcus exhaled softly. The hardest part of the morning was done, but the real work was only beginning. This place can grow, but it starts with a change in culture. It starts with how we treat people. Heads nodded. Shoulders loosened. The room breathed again. Marcus turned from the counter and looked across the lobby, letting his voice carry just enough. Today begins a new chapter, and anyone willing to move forward with integrity will have a place here. A young woman near the concierge desk looked at him with wide eyes. She had dark hair pulled into a braid and a name tag that read Mia. He smiled at her. What's your name? Mia. You'll help lead the first round of training. I saw how you treated the guests this morning. You have the temperament this place needs. Her eyes softened with surprise. Me? Really? Yes. And more opportunities will come if you're ready for them. She nodded, steadying her breath. The rest of the staff watched with a mix of curiosity and hope. Marcus could see it happening already. The shift, the spark, the sense that something better was possible. This hotel will become a place people feel welcome in. And it will start today. He stood in the very spot where he had been quietly dismissed the night before. But now the air had changed. He had come back not as a guest, but as the one who would reshape everything. The hours that followed carried a strange mix of tension and relief through the building. For the first time in a long time, the employees felt like they were being seen. Some were unsure where the day would lead. Others felt hopeful in ways they hadn't allowed themselves to feel in years. And Marcus moved through the lobby with calm purpose, speaking to staff members one by one, asking questions about how things had been run, listening to concerns they had been too afraid to voice before. By early afternoon, contractors were already arriving, clipboards in hand, questions in their eyes. The hotel had been running on the same outdated systems and tired decor for years, and Marcus knew it. He had walked past faded wallpaper and dull lighting the night before. Today, he intended to fix it all. He met the head contractor near the elevators. Start with the lobby. People should feel welcome the moment they step inside, not intimidated, not judged. The contractor nodded, surprised at how direct and steady Marcus was. Got it. We'll bring in the team. The changes began immediately. Old furniture was carried out. Paint samples were taped along the walls. Designers discussed warm tones and natural textures that would soften the atmosphere. Nearby, the staff watched with quiet excitement. Each shift in the room felt like a signal that their world was about to improve, not just the building they worked in. Mia approached Marcus with a small notebook pressed to her chest. I have some ideas for the training you mentioned. Things we can teach. Ways we can help the team interact better with guests and each other. Marcus listened closely, letting her explain everything. She talked about clear communication, patience, inclusivity, and recognizing when someone might need support. Her voice was steady but earnest, and he could tell she had been thinking about these things long before today. You put a lot of thought into this, he said. She nodded. I've seen guests treated differently for reasons that never made sense. I always wanted the hotel to do better. Now's your chance. Put together a full plan. You'll lead the first session tomorrow. Mia blinked, caught between excitement and disbelief. Tomorrow? Marcus, I've never led anything like that. You'll do well. I can tell. Her shoulders straightened a little, and she walked away with a determined expression that hadn't been there earlier. Marcus watched her for a moment. She reminded him of himself at a younger age, filled with ideas, but waiting for someone to finally let him step forward. Throughout the day, staff members approached Marcus hesitantly, unsure if it was appropriate to speak to the new owner. But he encouraged every conversation. Some told him stories about rude guests they had been forced to tolerate. Others shared frustrations about the former management's favoritism. A few admitted they had been thinking about quitting before today. Marcus listened to each one and never rushed a single exchange. Respecting the smallest voices had been one of the core values in every business he had ever built. As the afternoon shifted toward evening, he stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The rain had long stopped, and the sun was lowering behind the tall buildings surrounding Harborcrest Beach. The air smelled fresh, clean, almost symbolic. He leaned against one of the stone pillars and let his thoughts settle. He had meant every word he told the staff. This wasn't about punishment. This was about transformation. And transformation required more than removing bad influences. It required building systems where fairness could breathe. He closed his eyes briefly, remembering the look on Derek's face in the morning. There had been fear, but there had also been confusion. People often hid behind rules or power, unaware of the harm they caused. Some learned from it. Others didn't. Marcus could only control the environment, not people's hearts. And he hoped today's shift would encourage everyone to re-examine their own beliefs. Mia appeared in the doorway behind him, holding a clipboard filled with new notes. "Marcus, I just spoke with a few coworkers. They're excited about the training. Some of them said, no one has ever asked for their input before. That's going to change around here. Everyone should feel involved." She smiled softly. "It already feels different." Marcus returned the smile. "Good, because this place is going to represent more than comfort. It's going to stand for respect." Inside, the team had begun preparing the conference room for the training. Chairs were set in a circle, not in rows, to make the session feel open instead of rigid. Staff members were talking and even laughing with each other. There was nervousness, of course, but there was hope too. Late in the evening, workers arrived to start the first phase of renovations. They spread protective covers on the floors and began removing outdated fixtures. A few staff stayed after their shifts to watch the transformation kick off, their eyes shining with anticipation. For many of them, this hotel was more than a workplace. It was the source of their income, their pride, and their identity. Seeing someone invest time and effort into improving it felt personal. By nightfall, the lobby already looked different. Not finished, not perfect, but different enough to signal change. New lights were temporarily installed to cast a warmer glow across the room. Plants had been brought in to soften the corners. The dull, harsh atmosphere from the previous day was fading. Marcus stood in the middle of it all, hands in his pockets, quietly taking everything in. He knew rebuilding culture would not be fast, and habits would not shift overnight. But this was the beginning he had envisioned. Word started spreading outside the building quicker than he expected. Guests who checked in that day noticed the changes and whispered about the new owner who walked the halls talking to employees like they mattered. Former guests heard whispers through friends and social media posts about the transformation underway. Even nearby businesses were beginning to talk about the sudden shift at the Bluecrest Grand. Inside the hotel, the staff moved with more confidence, as if they were stepping into a place that finally saw them. And the sense of unity that had been missing for so long was gently returning. Marcus watched a family check-in that evening. The two kids were laughing and holding ice cream cones, and their parents looked tired but grateful. Mia handled their check-in with patience and genuine warmth. Marcus noticed something else. The father paused and looked at him for a moment. There was recognition in his eyes, as if he had heard the story already. He nodded respectfully before following his family to the elevators. Marcus breathed in deeply and let out slowly. The work was far from done, but the shift had already begun. The next morning arrived with a calm that felt earned. Staff members gathered early, some carrying notebooks, others holding coffee, all of them curious about what the day would bring. There was a quiet buzz in the air that hadn't existed before, almost like the hotel itself was learning how to breathe again. Marcus stepped into the conference room, where the first training session was about to start. The chairs had been arranged in a circle, just as Mia suggested, and the room felt more like a community space than a meeting. Mia stood near the front, gripping her notes with both hands. She wasn't nervous the way she had been yesterday. She was focused, ready. When everyone settled, she began speaking in a steady, clear voice. We're here because this place is changing. And that means we have the chance to make things better for ourselves and for every guest who walks through the door. She talked about respect. She talked about empathy. She talked about the power of small actions and how they can either invite someone in or push them out. She didn't speak like a manager. She spoke like a person who had seen enough and didn't want to see any more harm done. Staff members listened. They shared their own stories when she asked. Some shared moments they weren't proud of. Others admitted they had been afraid to speak up in the past. A few broke into quiet tears as they talked about experiences with difficult guests who had made them feel powerless. Marcus watched silently at first, but eventually he joined the circle. When Mia paused, he spoke. Every one of you has a voice here. That wasn't true before, but it will be now. This hotel will be known for fairness, not fear. His words anchored the room. People leaned in. No one looked away. Several sessions followed throughout the day, each one built on the last. Staff who had stayed silent for years found their voices again. Others began volunteering to help with future training modules. Marcus saw something he hadn't expected. Leaders were forming naturally, not from titles, but from character. Meanwhile, renovations continued around them. The old carpets were being pulled up. New marble tiles were going in. Fresh paint changed the walls from dull beige to warm cream. Plants lined the hallways. The lobby kept growing brighter and more inviting. Guests began noticing more than the decor. They noticed the smiles, the warmth, the way the staff looked at them like people instead of tasks to be completed. Word spread quickly through the beach town. People spoke about the change in tone long before they spoke about the change in design. Families came back after years away. Business travelers who used to avoid the Blue Crest Grand found themselves impressed by the new atmosphere. Even locals wandered in just to see what had sparked the shift, and the reviews began to reflect it. Messages poured in on the hotel's website. Praise for kindness. Praise for respect. Praise for the way people felt cared for. One review mentioned that the staff made them feel like they belonged even after arriving without a reservation. Another said the hotel had gone from cold and distant to warm and genuine in a matter of weeks. Marcus read every message, each one reminding him why he had taken action that night. During this transformation, one person in particular stood out. Mia didn't just lead training. She stepped into responsibilities she never imagined she would have. She developed new staff protocols. She helped guide the renovation layout to make the hotel more welcoming. She even created a weekly check-in system for guests with special needs or anxieties about traveling. One afternoon, Marcus approached her near the new front desk. "You've done incredible work here." She smiled shyly. "I just wanted to help." "You've done more than help. You've become essential. And because of that, I'm promoting you to assistant manager." Her breath caught. She blinked quickly and shook her head. "Me? Marcus, I've only been here a year. You've done more for this hotel in a month than some people did in a decade. You earned this." Her voice trembled slightly. "Thank you. Really, I never thought someone would see what I had to offer." Marcus understood that feeling more deeply than she realized. As weeks passed, the hotel's transformation gained attention from local papers and travel bloggers who had previously ignored the Blue Crest Grand. They were curious about the shift in culture. They interviewed guests who raved about the new atmosphere. They spoke to staff who told them how different things felt under the new leadership. But while the hotel was rising, someone else was falling. Derek, the former front desk clerk, had been searching for work but found it harder than expected. Word had spread about his dismissal. Some venues knew the story. Others had heard only pieces. But each rejection forced him to confront something he had never examined before. At first, he blamed everyone else. He blamed the hotel, the new owner, the guests. But over time, as more doors closed on him, he began thinking about the years he spent passing silent judgment on people he should have welcomed. It wasn't a sudden realization. It was slow, heavy, and for the first time, he felt the weight of his choices. Back at the hotel, the final touches of renovation continued. A new lounge opened. The restaurant introduced a menu inspired by local flavors. The rooms were redesigned to feel open and peaceful. Every improvement carried the same message Marcus had repeated for weeks. This place belongs to everyone. Guests of every background filled the lobby throughout the day. Staff moved with confidence, and the atmosphere felt like a new breath every time someone stepped through the doors. Marcus often stood near the entrance to observe the flow of the day, not as a watcher, but as someone who wanted to make sure the hotel never drifted back to the way it had been. One morning, as he watched guests arrive, a family stepped inside. A father with 2 kids, a mother pushing a stroller. The father paused when he saw Marcus. "You're the new owner, right? The one who changed everything?" Marcus nodded. "That's what I've been working toward." The man smiled warmly. "People talk about what you did here. Whatever path led you to make those changes, I'm grateful for it." Marcus thanked him, but there was something deeper behind his calm expression. The transformation wasn't just good for business. It was personal. It was something he needed to prove, not to the world, but to himself. He had changed the hotel, but something inside him had shifted too. As the weeks turned into months, the Blue Crest Grand began carrying a new kind of reputation. Not the polished, superficial reputation it once clung to, but something earned. Something felt. Guests praised the atmosphere as much as they praised the rooms. Locals recommended it as the most welcoming place in Harborcrest Beach. Travelers who had stayed in dozens of hotels said this one felt different in a way they couldn't quite explain. Marcus watched it all unfold quietly. He didn't parade his involvement. He didn't give speeches. He simply showed up, walked the floors, listened to the staff, and made sure the culture stayed grounded in the values he had set on the very first day. Every transformation leaves a trail in the people who live through it, and the staff felt it deeply. Mia became a steady anchor in the front office. Her leadership grew with every problem she solved and every person she helped. Other employees who once kept to themselves began taking on new roles with confidence. Turnover dropped, morale rose, and the hotel became not just a workplace, but a community. But there was a moment coming that Marcus didn't expect. One crisp morning, as sunlight spilled into the lobby, the front doors opened and a young man walked in with steady but uncertain steps. His eyes darted around the room as if searching for something familiar. Some of the older staff recognized him instantly. A few exchanged uneasy glances. It was Derek. He stood there for a long moment before approaching Marcus, who had been reviewing a guest checklist. Marcus looked up slowly. There was no anger in his expression, just a calm curiosity. Derek stopped a few feet away, gripping the strap of his bag. "I didn't come to ask for my job back," he said softly. "I know that's gone." The staff grew still, listening without meaning to. "I came to say I understand what you were trying to teach. At first I was angry, but after everything that happened, I get it now. I just wanted you to know that." Marcus studied him, not judging, not dismissing, simply listening. "People can change when they want to," he replied. Derek nodded once. "I'm trying." Marcus didn't offer him a job. He didn't offer him forgiveness with dramatic words. Instead, he offered something Derek had never expected from the man he once disregarded entirely. "I hope you find a place that lets you grow into who you're becoming." Derek's eyes flickered with gratitude as he stepped back. "Thank you. Really." He turned and left quietly. The staff watched him go, each person carrying their own thoughts about how far everything had come. Marcus didn't dwell on it. Change wasn't about punishing people. It was about creating something better than what had been there before. Later that day, Marcus walked out to the courtyard behind the hotel. It had been completely renovated, with soft lighting, comfortable seating, and tall trees planted along the perimeter. Guests sat around with morning coffee, some reading, some chatting. A sense of peace filled the space. Mia had joined him at one of the tables. "I saw Derek earlier," she said. Marcus nodded. People grow when life forces them to look in a mirror. Maybe this was his moment. Mia looked around at the courtyard. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come back that night?" Marcus leaned back slightly. "I do, and I know exactly what would have happened. Things would have stayed the same. People would have kept getting mistreated quietly, and the hotel would have collapsed eventually under its own indifference." She smiled. "Then I'm glad you didn't let it go." Marcus exhaled, watching a child laugh as he chased a butterfly near the flower beds. "For a long time, I built businesses because I wanted to prove something to the world. Success was survival for me. But this this is different. This is the first time I felt like success meant something bigger than profit. Something human. The wind brushed through the courtyard trees, carrying the sound of soft conversation and the distant hum of the city. As the sun rose higher, the lobby filled with more guests. Families arriving, travelers checking out, employees moving with purpose. Every detail reflected the change that had taken root here. Marcus eventually walked back inside, stopping at the entrance for a moment. A father passed by and shook his hand. A young couple thanked him quietly for the atmosphere. A housekeeper nodded warmly as she rolled her cart toward the elevator. He took it all in with a slow, steady breath. The night he was turned away could have been just another moment of quiet injustice. A moment countless people experience without ever having the chance to respond. But Marcus didn't let it drift into silence. He turned it into something bigger, something lasting. He didn't simply buy a hotel. He rebuilt dignity where it had been denied. He planted fairness where there had been disregard. He created a place where every person mattered the moment they walked in. And as he stepped fully into the lobby, surrounded by the life and warmth that now filled the space, he knew one truth with complete certainty. Change doesn't begin with anger. It begins with courage. It begins with one person refusing to accept what should never have been acceptable. The Blue Crest Grand became the proof. Not just that change was possible, but that it could echo far beyond the walls where it started. And Marcus Hale walked forward, ready for whatever came next, knowing he had already made more difference than he ever expected on the night. He was simply searching for a room.